First off, the 55,000 Bibles that Ryan wants to buy, that would cost $3 million. And people are wondering, where are you finding $3 million from the school budget, which, by the way, is taxpayer-funded money, right, to buy religious texts based on someone's religious zealotry, that we are a Christian nation and children have to be taught that literal indoctrination.
Hello.
I think I stink a little bit.
You just sniffed yourself.
I did. You know those moments where you're like, is that me or is that someone else? It might be me.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I've had those moments.
Yeah, well, I'm having one live on camera.
Wow. What? How fun. How fun is that?
Why don't I just roll the stinger and we'll try and reset this stuff.
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay, hi friends, happy Friday. Welcome back. Another recap coming your way, packed week. A lot going on. Hurricanes, crazy Christian nationalist pastors, Trump, Ryan Walters, Trump Bibles in public schools. A lot to cover today. Hello, April. It is great to see you.
Hello, Timothy.
Oh,
it is lovely to be here.
Timothy.
Is your actual name Timothy or is it just Tim?
My actual name is Timothy.
Timothy Chalamet.
My full legal name is Timothy, but I go by Tim. The only person who calls me Timmy that I actually will tolerate it from is my mother. There are some people online, some of these like Theo bros who are like, hello, Timmy. And I'm like, oh, just like, you're very annoying. Please stop doing that. Yeah. So anyway, it's good to see you though. How's your week been?
My week has been great. I've been traveling and promoting my book like crazy. It was pretty much what I've been doing, and reading reviews.
Wait. You have a book that you wrote? What? I haven't heard about. What's it called, April?
I know, shameless plug.
What's it called?
It's called Star Spangled Jesus. You could see. No.
There you go. It's tricky, right?
You're like,
yeah.
I know. Yeah, I was in Nashville this weekend, and I've been on so many podcasts too. I'm making the rounds.
World traveler. Well, congrats again on the success of the book launch. And friends, if you have not read the book yet, pick it up. It's on audiobook. It's on Amazon. It's a great read. Reviews are coming in. I see it all over our New Evangelicals Facebook community group. I see it all over my Twitter. I see it all over my Instagram. So job well done, April.
Yay.
I'm so happy for you.
Oh, it feels good. And it means so much that people are that are actually reading it and then saying nice things. So
yeah, well, that's always a good feeling. Yeah. Last night we live streamed here on YouTube. The video is up with Kristen Dumais. We watched her documentary for our daughters. I'm not sure if you've seen this yet. It's on YouTube. It's a 30-minute docu-short that she put together that just details stories of church sexual abuse and what has happened to the pastors compared to what happened to the survivors. Very powerful. So we did that. It's been a very busy week. I mean, so do you ever have these moments where you look back and you're like, wow, there's a lot of content that I made this week? That's how I feel this week is, because we do a podcast show, we do the YouTube, we do the Instagram content, TikTok. It's a lot of stuff, a lot of work.
Yeah, this last week, I feel like I've been so out of it. I have thought about so many content things that I need to make. But I haven't.
Yeah.
I guess there's too much. Like literally any day I look at the news and I'm like, oh, I can make a video about that and that and that and that. And at a certain point, I just feel like I crumble. I'm like, I can't do it all.
Same. We are not a multi-million-dollar organization, and so it is just people behind screens scrolling like all of us do and saying, oh, I could react to that. And that, and then you're like, well, where do I even start? And then by the time you think of one, that moment's gone. So you want to find something. Oh my gosh,
I know.
It's tricky.
It's a lot.
It's tricky. It's not easy. It's not easy.
No,
I used to think before I was in the content creation field, I'd be like, ugh, these content creators, like, how hard can it be? You wake up, you just turn your camera on, you start talking, and then you go viral. Like, yawn. Like, what? Ridiculous. Like, get a real job. I repent. I repent forever thinking that, because it is a lot of work. It's a lot of headspace work. Like my mind always feels clogged up with, okay, what's the upcoming content? Is it done? Is the title made? Is the thumbnail done? Plus, I'm trying to think about what kind of in the moment content can I make for Instagram, and then family and life, and it's just like I feel like my head is always swimming somewhere other than where I am presently at any given time.
Yeah, it is. Yes, it is really hard to be in the moment these days.
So,
especially when you're like, I have most of my notifications turned off on my apps because otherwise I would never get anything done. But even still, like, just a constant influx of information is overwhelming.
100%. It's crazy. So anyway, well, listen, friends, it's great to be with you. Thanks for making time out of your busy day to either watch or listen to this on YouTube or podcast. Yeah, it's just a lot of fun. We have a lot to cover. I mean, there's a lot here. And in the main, okay, just so that way people know ahead of time, okay, the main story we're going to focus on is Ryan Walters, the superintendent of Oklahoma schools nationwide, and his attempt to buy 55,000 Bibles to put them inside of public schools. We're going to get to that, but there's other stuff we have to update you on and kind of cover first, okay? So I'm just letting you know that's towards the end of this show. But,
don't hate us.
All right, I'm not trying to clickbait you. It's coming, but there's a lot to get to that I think is also worth talking about. So April, where do you want to start?
Well, I think before we get into our first story, I do need to repent for something.
I agree. Hold on.
Oh, it hurts. It hurts. Last week, I got a little ranty and fired up, as one does when talking about Christian nationalists.
Yes, Lord.
And I was talking about how conservative evangelicals have created this whole conspiracy about leftist infiltration in evangelicalism instead of just admit that their candidate is trash. I called Donald Trump trash, and I got called out for it in the comments, that it was, you know, I had crossed the line into dehumanizing. And at first I was like, ugh.
Yeah.
But
yeah, totally.
I don't want, Trump is not trash. Trump is a human being. And one thing that I even talk about in my book and that we talk about all the time is we don't want to dehumanize people, even if they're on the other side, even if they're actively causing harm. They are still humans at the end of the day. And so I repent for calling Trump trash, because trash is a very vague insult that'll, you know, we get called vague insults all the time. And I think that it's a dehumanizing maybe term. What I should have said was that their candidate is a misogynist, sexist, xenophobic, narcissist, bigot, racist, and a grifter, and a serial adulterer, and a convicted felon.
All factually true statements.
I should have said those things instead of just calling him trash. So I do repent for that, because I don't want to dehumanize, and I'm sorry.
Well, April, as the man in this situation, I forgive you.
Thank you.
Your sins have been forgiven. Go and sin no more.
Woo.
Don't you feel great now? Hasn't a burden been lifted off of your shoulders now that I have granted you forgiveness? Yeah.
The yoke is easy.
But honestly, in all seriousness, we were talking about this offline.
Yeah.
I know the feeling as well of having someone leave a comment or DM you, and you know, like maybe they're kind of right, but you don't want to accept it because it's like I don't want to admit I was wrong there because you're right. But I do think, in all seriousness, I do commend you for acknowledging this, because none of us are always perfect. We're going to say things that maybe are even over the line for our own values. And I think the difference between a lot of what we see in right-wing media and what we're trying to do here is that we're trying to actually be willing to acknowledge when we make mistakes, so we can quite literally say, I'm sorry, it was, not the right statement, and I want to do better next time. That's all it is, right? So I appreciate that. I think it means a lot to the audience for sure. And you're right. I mean, it is very easy to, especially when you're ranting, just to kind of let it all out, which we do often. But Trump is not trash, right? He is a human being, but he is the things that you said after that. I mean, he just is. Like, we have data for that, right? So I think it's a good call to repent for that. And I think I commend you.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Now that we are cleansed.
Yes. Now that we are pure again.
So the first kind of story we feel like we have to talk about is the hurricane and all the damage between Helene, which we talked about some last week, but then Milton. We're recording this on Thursday morning, so Milton just hit Florida overnight, and I think the reports are still coming in on how vast the damage is going to be. But I was watching the news earlier today that there's cars stuck in roads because it's just full of water in Hillsborough County, and I used to live there, so I'm recognizing places, and that's just it's just surreal and weird and terrible. So, and I know, I think there's a report that at least 4 people were confirmed dead just from tornadoes that broke out from the hurricane. There were a bunch of tornadoes. In St. Petersburg, they're saying it was a 1 in 1,000 year rainfall event.
Yeah.
So I think we'll still, I hope you hope for the best, but it's probably a little too early still to know how catastrophic it actually was. So, I mean, my heart, I have a lot of family and friends that live in Florida.
Yeah, same.
And still in North Carolina. And, the whole thing is just really tragic. But one thing we wanted to talk about is there's been a lot of conspiracy theories around these hurricanes, which we touched on last week briefly. But they're still running, like, and Trump is fueling some of it by saying that the government's not providing any assistance, which the government is. So it's already creating this anti-government trust, which is going to deter actual, like, people getting help. And I think Ron DeSantis also was refusing calls from Kamala Harris, who is wanting to give aid
Yes.
So there's a lot of people still playing politics when people's lives are at stake and on the line, or people, but one thing that's going on too is they're saying that Democrats are controlling the weather.
Yep.
Specifically to just create chaos, I guess, to steal another election. And it's so infuriating. I don't know how you feel about it, but I find myself just being really mad because scientists and people have been talking about climate change for decades.
Yep.
And saying that, like, and hurricanes getting more extreme is part, like, they're saying that is a symptom of climate change.
Right. As the climate gets warmer, our ocean temperature gets warmer. That creates stronger hurricanes. Like, it's a very logical if this then that situation. We're experiencing record temperatures in the ocean, and that creates these more frequent and stronger hurricanes.
Yeah. But then you have people that are just finally now admitting that, wow, these storms are more extreme and stronger, but instead of going with the warnings that we've heard for years, they're just saying, oh, it must be the Democrats, which honestly, they give Democrats so much credit.
It's amazing how powerful. It's amazing when you think about it, April, that Democrats cannot get affordable healthcare passed, or they can't forgive student loans, but they can control hurricanes. I mean,
I know
that math that adds up to me. I guess that just demonstrates how difficult it is to forgive student loans that have been built on predatory loan systems. And it's just crazy to think about the potential where we can live in America where we're not worrying about co-pays or deductibles, or, if our kids have health care, if we start our own nonprofit, for example, right? That's so crazy because we can control hurricanes, so we can't get that done. Whew.
Yeah, I know. It reminds me of back in 2020, you had all these Trump prophets, Greg Locke being one of them, who said, God told them that Trump was going to win, and they were prophesying a Trump victory. And then people like Greg Locke, when Trump lost, doubled down and said, no, Trump did win. The Democrats just stole it. So he did hear correctly from God. And I'm like, so now you're saying that Democrats are more powerful than God? Like that was God's plan, but Democrats somehow thwarted it?
Well, and isn't this kind of the playbook, right? It's both and. So at any time they are incredibly weak and persecuted, or God is all powerful and wonderful, or the Democrats are so powerful they're actually overpowering God, right? So like at any given time, whatever tactic needs to be employed to prove their point, they will employ. Right? I mean, on one hand, they represent the almighty God and are unstoppable. The gates of hell will not prevail against this Christian nationalist church. On the other hand, they are the most persecuted minority in America because the deep state is threatening their God-given rights. For them, both are true. Do you want to play, though, really quick, back to the hurricane, the meteorologist who was crying on camera? I mean, it really is like, and what is his name, April? I'm blanking on it.
Yeah, he's a NBC Miami meteorologist named John Morales.
He's like a legend in Miami. This guy's been around for a long, long time. Just listen, friends, to this little minute clip here of him talking about Hurricane Milton. Check this out.
Just an incredible, incredible, incredible hurricane. It has dropped. It has dropped 50 millibars in 10 hours. I apologize. This is just horrific. Maximum sustained winds are 160 miles per hour, and it is just gaining strength in the Gulf of Mexico, where you can imagine the winds. I mean, the seas are just so incredibly, incredibly hot. Record hot, as you might imagine. You know what's driving that. I don't need to tell you. Global warming, climate change, leading to this and becoming an increasing threat for the Yucatan, including Mérida and Progreso and other areas there.
There you go. I mean, you have a meteorologist who's been around for decades crying on camera because of the intensity of this storm, and to the point where he just says it. He says, we know what's causing this, right? Like, we have data. We predicted that this is going to happen more and more. And by the way, I mean, just to be really like clear, this is not a liberal talking point. This is like a humanity issue, a humanitarian issue, because the stronger storms get, the more damage they do, the more it costs us to clean up, the more human casualties it causes, right? This is not just about, because the way that Christian nationalists in particular frame this is that global warming is a hoax, mostly a hoax, in order for the left to gain more control and power. And it's like, actually, what if this supposed left, whoever they are, I mean, I guess, me and moderate people as well, are just all leftists now, because we're like, wow, if we keep getting stronger hurricanes that make it farther inland and are hitting places that are not designed to withstand, hurricane force winds, and it's causing billions and billions of dollars in damages, maybe we should try and look at what could be causing this. Is there data? And what could we do to reduce the potential impact long term of storms getting stronger and stronger, right? But for some people, that is such an unfathomable thought to acknowledge that they would rather believe that or they would rather entertain, because there is a difference between I fully believe this to, well, you never know, just asking questions, which is a very moderate, like white evangelical position to hold. They would rather entertain, I don't really trust the government. So yeah, I mean, it's plausible that they're controlling the weather. It's totally plausible that there's people in the government, human beings who exist, who would rather kill their own citizens with hurricanes than let Trump win. Like, who are these people? It's kind of like the narrative when you hear people go, Democrats want to kill babies up until the point of birth. And then you think, well, wait, what person is getting into the last trimester in the last week and is like, you know what? I changed my mind. Like, no one does that, right? So like the way that they frame the story, when you actually examine it, is so preposterous, but they keep running with that talking point. It's maddening.
Because they think Democrats are pure evil. They've been taught to believe that there's they're literally like big bad villains trying to control them for whatever reason. And it's tragic. Because one, it's a very horrific, fear-based way to live, but also it is detrimental to the change that we have to make as a human species to like slow down climate change. Like there are actually things that we can do, like, but there's so much money in the beef industry, and like cows are a huge contributor to a warming planet. But like it's so honestly, climate change, if I don't have anxiety about the election, if I think about climate change too much, it's a really scary thing. And on top of it, Christian nationalists, a good chunk of them, also believe in the rapture and premillennialism. And that theology alone is harmful to the planet. Because when you believe that Jesus is going to come back at any moment and create a whole new earth, like I've literally heard people say, sure, yeah, climate change is real, but it doesn't matter because Jesus is coming back. And like that keeps them from, you know, there's that quote, I can't remember who said it, but you know, some Christians can be so heavenly minded that they're no earthly good. And that is 100% what 100%. Rapture theology creates, because you have all these people that are suddenly like, they just don't care what happens to the earth because they think they're going to get sucked up at a trumpet sound.
They literally they believe that literally, but then think that when Jesus tells the rich man it's harder to enter the kingdom than it is for a camel to go through the eye of a needle, that's metaphorically, right? That's a metaphor. Well, you know, rich people, it's about the heart. It's very interesting. Actually, Scott Colby calls it motivated literalism. That's the term he uses. And it's when you selectively choose to interpret the Bible literally when you have motivations to do so, right? So, like, it doesn't matter if it's in context or not. Some people really believe that, hey, who cares if this earth is going to shit because God's going to make a new one. And they would choose to believe that literally over the commands to take care of the poor, to heal the sick, right? To liberate the oppressed. They would ignore James 5, the brutal warning to rich people who exploit their workers for unfair profit. Does that sound familiar at all in our society, right? Those texts are ignored, but this rapture theology, which by the way is a very new ideology, is believed so literally that it will influence how they vote. And we're literally killing ourselves. Like humanity is killing the only planet we got. There's no plan B. This isn't WALL-E, right? This isn't some movie where it's like, well, maybe Mars one day. This is the only place we have. If this environment that we exist in gets more polluted, if the air gets dirtier, if the planet keeps warming and we get stronger and stronger storms, first off, it already has caused a lot of death. It's caused famine, etc. It's only going to get worse. And to see the fossil fuel industry and to see how a handful of people, I think the stat is about 75 people, you can fit them on a bus that represent some of the biggest companies, are responsible for 75% of like our human caused emissions. It's, you know, and somehow we think that, well, if we recycle, like that's going to solve the problem. I mean, listen, we as humans should recycle as individuals, but there are bigger people that are causing so much more damage with their companies and their pollution that you throwing your Coke bottle in the recycling bin isn't going to make the dent that it needs to without them, you know, getting on board. End of rant.
Right. Which is not to say to not throw your cans in the recycling bin.
Right, obviously, recycle. But there is, and last thing on this, I know we're a little long-winded, didn't mean to, but it's important. There actually is studies that show that part of like the green initiative is actually funded by some of those large companies to take the spotlight off of them and how much they're polluting the environment. So that way you think that you're doing a good job because you're not using plastic straws anymore. Which, by the way, again, it's good to not use plastic straws, but that is just one small, tiny piece of the puzzle that is causing the warming of the planet.
It's just the biggest group project ever. And group projects are they never go well. There's always those few people that are like, I'm not doing any work, and they ruin it for everyone else.
That is so funny. That's funny.
Okay, moving on to a more short-term problem.
Okay.
There's been some Christian leaders this week that have just gone off the rails.
Ooh, this could be a long episode. This could be a long freaking episode,
okay,
April.
Well, we can try to be fast. So first of all,
I don't know. I thought the climate warming or the global warming part would be quick, but
I know. we're gonna get through this. Okay. The Blaze, Glenn Beck.
Oh.
has. Oh, you want to? Okay.
No. It was the wrong scene. I'm sorry. I made a mistake.
No, you're fine.
We'll get to Josh Howerton.
Jeremy Pryor, who is he? He's led several businesses and nonprofits. He's a Christian man. I don't really know who he is, but anyway, he wrote something that The Blaze picked up. And it says, the headline reads, first of all, it's a picture of the cartoon Bluey.
We all love Bluey. Family. Like, who doesn't love freaking, it's Bluey. I cry as a parent watching Bluey. I'm like, this is about, this show is for me. It's not for my 2-year-old. It's for me.
Yeah, so the headline reads, okay, so, first of all, I just love how so many conservatives or Republicans over the years are like, Democrats are snowflakes, liberals are snowflakes, they just get offended over everything. And then this also them, how a beloved children's cartoon turns fathers into mothers and what the Bible says about it.
I am dying. I hate it here.
So he thought, you know what? We need to go after Bluey because...
Well, let's read. Have you no shame, sir, Jeremy? Have you no, like, where is your honor? Where is your dignity? Bluey? You're going to go after Bluey? Like, what? How? The levels of depravity in these spaces. Bluey. Mm-hmm. Sorry. Go ahead. I'm just shocked.
Bluey is one of the most wholesome shows out there.
Most wholesome. If you watch Bluey, put it in the comments so we know we're not alone because, geez.
So the reason he writes this article is he says, you know, in media or whatever, the profile of the historic father that we've begun to move past portrayals, you know, it used to be fathers were the bumbling idiots of shows in the 80s and 90s, and now they're a new kind of engaged, empathetic, and present father. There's only one problem with this new ideal father. He embodies almost all of the elements of the traditional mother, purged of the essence of elements from the historic father. The poster child for this new depiction can be found in the mega popular kids program Bluey. The dad, Bandit, is seen as a constantly nurturing, always present playmate to his 2 daughters, Bluey and Bingo. He's so present, in fact, that fans of the show often joke about when Bandit finds time to work. And in the show, it's clear that the mother has less time to play than the dad. Our culture loves this depiction of fatherhood. It empties the father character of all elements of the traditionally masculine father we've grown uncomfortable with. And at the same time, it provides freedom for the mother to get out in the world and explore her individual passions.
Wow. Marxism, liberalism, look out.
I know, it sounds so terrible. He's like, everyone wins, right? Well, it depends. I wonder what it depends on. It depends on whether there's an objective ideal of fatherhood and motherhood, and if there is, then symbolic depictions seeking to reverse these objective profiles are problematic.
I'm flabbergasted.
So
continue on. This is great. Keep going. Yeah, this is wonderful.
You want me to just read that? Okay. Embracing these kinds of portrayals, especially in a highly symbolic medium like in a cartoon, will go a long way in shaping our intuition around the essence of these roles. Now, today, almost no one thinks there are objective ideals to these archetypes, and if they are right, and they personally resonate with the father, mother, and daughter depictions in Bluey, then everything I'm about to say will be dissonant and probably offensive. So let me say from the outset that even in the conservative Christian world, my position is a tiny minority, maybe less than 1%. So feel free to stop reading if you're getting triggered.
Jeremy. Look into the camera. You know what? Hold on. Look into the camera. Right here. You see this? It's just me. It's me and you, Jeremy. Do you know why even in conservative spaces you're in the minority? Because your position is ridiculous. Your position is stupid. It's ignorant. It makes no sense. It feels like you're just making a point to make a point to go viral. And that's why even in your own community, you're in the 1%. There you go. I want to be clear for just so Jeremy knew. Like, the reason, Jeremy, people think this is ridiculous is because it is, dare I say, objectively ridiculous. His whole premise, this idea, where is it? Where he says... it depends on whether there's an objective ideal of fatherhood and motherhood. I mean, is nurturing not an objective ideal of both of those traits? Do not both a mother and a father exhibit nurturing ideals? Should a father not play with their children? or show sensitivity or teach their children how to use restraint and how to be gentle and kind and empathetic, right? And how to stand up for those who can't stand up for themselves, especially on the playground, and use that strength for good. What is this guy talking about?
Yeah, well, if he must listen to Bill Gothard's umbrella graphic.
I'm
also,
like,
I don't think it's less than 1%. I think he's trying to be a little elitist here.
I'm waiting for Ali Stuckey to share this article on her Instagram. She will. It's a matter of time, because this is totally what she would say. She would be like, Bluey is destroying the typical masculine and feminine roles between men and women. And it's like, that masculine and feminine are traits that people, whoever they are, can embrace at different times. And yeah, sure, maybe some people embrace more one than the other, but they're just ways of describing different ways of moving through the world, different temperaments, different ways of understanding things. And you need both for any society, or for any whatever, and any person. Like April, I'm sure there are times with your with your kids, where you embrace the more, dare we say, masculine role, and you're a little more, firm, and like maybe it's more like, hey, let's be a little more emphatically clear. This is not okay, right? And then there are times where maybe you embrace some more feminine roles of like, oh, you got a boo-boo. Let me kiss your boo-boo for you. And guess what? I, as a heterosexual man, do the same exact thing. Our little guy, he goes, Daddy, I got a boo-boo. And I go, oh, buddy, let me kiss it. Where's your boo-boo? And he goes, right here. And he shows me his finger or his foot, and I kiss it. I embrace the feminine because I'm also feminine. It's part of who I am as a human.
I would even push back that I don't think either they're necessarily feminine or masculine traits. I think they're just human traits that we all embody to a certain degree.
Well, yeah, I'm okay. I not to get too deep in the weeds. I think feminine and masculine are just ways of describing human traits, right? And like we just put them in categories, and I'm sure we can blur the lines. And like, yeah, I know I'm being a little like either or. It's both and, but they're just ways of describing maybe like different temperaments or different like what I'm kind of trying to find the words,
What you're using,
hot and cold.
I think gender norms are a societal construct, and you are describing them based on what society would say.
Yeah, I mean, I think about it in a lot of ways of like, it's kind of like when you have hot and cold water and you try to take a shower. Sometimes you might want a little more cold, a little more hot. They have their place, and they're both needed to make it a comfortable, shower. But I think like in society as humans, we can embrace, we exhibit both of these traits, right? But in this world, women are called to embrace only these, whatever we think are feminine traits in America, and men are only called to embrace whatever they think are these masculine traits, which usually means anger, not being empathetic, more, whatever it would be, like that kind of alpha male vibe. And because Bluey has a father who is present and plays with his kids and like teaches them family values, I guess that's somehow not masculine according to this dude. It's just very interesting to witness.
So go to the next one, because these are basically the three premises that he bases this whole argument on. Maybe you didn't pull it.
Oh, I can. Let me see.
No, it's fine. I can just read it. So he says, let me lay out three premises I believe about this topic. And if you disagree with any of these, you'll disagree with the conclusion, blah, blah. So his first premise is masculinity and femininity are not social constructs or primarily biological concepts, but are family concepts designed to create a certain dynamic and to construct a highly functional multi-generational family team. 2, the Bible presents meta descriptions of masculinity/fatherhood and femininity/motherhood through symbolic characters primarily rooted in the story of Genesis.
Oh my gosh.
And 3, meta depictions of these roles are good and necessary to give culture at large something concrete to aim at, even though all of us as individuals will find some elements of these roles dissonant with our desires or even our innate wiring. So he is admitting right there that we can be born with an innate wiring that is counter to societal gender roles and norms.
Right.
But he's still saying, no, that's not actually your thing.
That's
anyway,
just so frustrating.
He goes on and on. He praises fathers in the Middle East a few times that they actually follow true, more Abrahamic depictions of father and Abrahamic religions. If you want to read it, it's fine.
I would love to know like what Bible characters he thinks are like the stand-up, father. Is it Abraham? Yeah,
Abraham.
Bringing his son to potentially be sacrificed. I guess that's a good view of masculinity. Or maybe it's David with his 8 wives. I mean, like, I'm just saying, like who exactly is he looking at here as like, this is the ideal fatherhood, the ideal father figure? Like who are we talking about?
He says Abram equals exalted father. Abram is literally described in our language as a meta father, which means ideal or model. He says Abram is not the perfect father. He's the meta father. We understand the elements of how God interacts with both the specific father Abram and the concept of fatherhood through the Genesis narrative.
Well, I mean, God allows Abram to have multiple wives, and I think he sleeps with like his maidservant as well. So why would that part not be okay? Like, I'm so curious for Jeremy. Like, why arbitrarily would you say, well, that part's not part of the ideal fatherhood masculine role, but this other part is? Again, like you're just picking and choosing, right? And you're doing it based on societal norms. So you're actually kind of back to full circle of how your own culture shapes how you read the text, because there's nothing that really is made clear about the problem of men having multiple wives, even ones who are married. Like it's not adultery at all especially in the Hebrew Bible, right? But that idea for these folks and for most people is like, no, that's not a good idea at all. But why? Like what's the basis? It can't be the Bible, because the Bible endorses those kinds of relationships, including ones by Abram, the father archetype that we should all be looking towards.
I know.
Maybe Bluey. Okay. Here's a suggestion. Maybe if Bluey or whatever the dad's name is it Bluey? What's the dad's name?
Bandit.
Thank you. Maybe if Bandit and his wife open up their marriage and brought in some more partners, that'd be a more biblical marriage, and therefore more pro family values, because it's more biblical.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
So just so you know, he first heard of the red flags in Bluey from his 2 teenage daughters, who told him.
Yeah.
They treat their dad like a plaything. So that was the big alarm.
Wow.
So anyway, it's all
there.
You can read the whole thing, but at the end, I just want to
this is good.
Highlight. This is how he ends the article. And in the same way, creating a daughter named Bluey using the color blue is totally lost on us. It goes right past our conscious awareness. If we do think about it, we think it's cool that they're reversing the gender stereotype of colors. We're playing checkers with those who are playing chess, and we've been checkmated over and over again.
Who's going to tell Jeremy that pink used to be seen as a masculine color and blue as a feminine color? Like, again, like if we were living in a different time in America, pink would be more related to the masculine manhood, and blue would be more related to the feminine womanhood. But
also, I do believe she's named Bluey because she's a blue heeler dog.
Yeah, it's
so.
Anyway,
let's get mad about Bluey. Climate change isn't real, but I'm mad about Bluey.
Yeah, right, exactly. Okay. Well, there's one example. Let's keep moving. Again, this is all what happened in the week, friends. This is all what happened in the week. So, and I feel like, frankly, just being honest, I kind of fumbled over my thoughts on like masculine and feminine. So if you're in the comments raging at me, I'm sorry. I'll repent next week. Okay. Like it was a stream of consciousness that I'm not really getting the words out, but I'm going to shoot for it. So if I missed, I apologize. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. Who do you want to do next? Gateway or Josh Howerton?
Two
new updates.
We're in, oh goodness. Let's just breeze past Gateway. Just a quick update.
Okay. Quick update on Gateway. So Gateway is now being sued by some former members. This lawsuit alleges that Gateway Church committed financial fraud with members' tithe. Basically, they now had a lawsuit. There's some members of the church or former members where apparently Gateway used to say there was a money-back guarantee on tithe if you didn't like how the church was spending your tithe money.
Right.
And they claimed that 15% of all tithe money coming into Gateway would be used specifically for the Global Ministries Fund that was supposed to, help with missions and overseas things. It says they had represented that 15% of all tithe dollars would be distributed to global missions and Jewish ministry partners. Yes. And they, would encourage you to give generously. And so they said they reached out to Gateway to get some transparency on how that 15% was spent. And when they were not given any transparency on whether or not that 15% actually went to where the church said, they asked for their money back, and they are not honoring that money back guarantee. So now they are suing for some transparency.
So we will keep you posted on how that lawsuit shakes out.
Yeah, man, Gateway's having a year.
Oof, they're having a year. And didn't Robert Morris's son and his wife like start a new church already?
Yeah, I don't know if they've started it or if they're just still planning.
They're trying to like seed it and like get the fundraising.
Yeah, they definitely announced they're starting a new church though.
Okay. Let's get to Josh Howerton. We have to. I've been chomping at the bit. I mean, talk about, and again, this week, I'm convinced there is a secret offline group message place where all these Christian evangelical leaders get together and say, okay, let's start talking about this on this time to kind of shape the election. So I'm hearing the same mantra repeated over and over again, and we're going to give you two different examples of this. Let's start with Josh Howerton.
Okay, so Josh Howerton this past Sunday gave a sermon called How to Vote Like Jesus. And there's an article that said that he named his sermon after a book written by his mentor, Mark Driscoll.
Oh my gosh, the narcissist, the abusive, we've covered Mark so many times. 40 of his own elders wrote a statement saying this man is not qualified to pastor. Today, Mark Driscoll has a bigger audience than he's ever had before in his life. I do not know how to convince moderate white evangelicals that the people that are tolerated and promoted in their spaces are so deeply un-Christ-like in their behaviors. And to see Josh Howerton, a mega pastor of Lake Point Church, huge church, just kind of be blatantly like, yeah, Mark's a mentor of mine. Like, yeah, I really appreciate Mark's work over here. It's like, dude, why would I trust your wisdom and discernment when you think that Mark Driscoll is a man who embraces the characters or the characteristics of a godly leader? Like, why would I trust you to shape anything else in my life, given your shitty intuition when it comes to who you think is a godly leader? It is, it's crazy.
I know. So
sorry, I'm really ranty. I cannot believe it.
No, you're fine. So this is how these sermons go. They usually start off saying, we don't endorse anybody.
Right.
We're
fair and balanced. We are fair and balanced.
Right. But then they say, but you need to vote for biblical values or Christian policies. And then they list all the reasons why you should vote for the Republican. And it's very obvious.
We're going to give two great examples of that for sure.
Yes. So go ahead and play this clip.
Okay. I know I have not seen this 30-second clip. So if I just rage at the end,
please.
Well, that's probably why, if you're listening or watching, that's probably why you're here, to hear me and or April rant at any given time. So here we go.
The church is not getting more political. Politics are getting more theological, and politics are getting more spiritual. When the government moved past things like building roads, issuing driver's licenses, and teaching math, to things like redefining marriage, erasing gender, reframing abortion as reproductive rights, and then using the government school system to indoctrinate everybody's kids into believing those things. Hey guys, the church didn't move. Politics did.
Oh my God. No, April, he did not just say all of that with a straight face. Can I replay that one more time?
Please do. The church didn't move.
This man he's tripping. What? Okay, let me just replay it.
The church is not getting more political. Politics are getting more theological, and
that's a lie.
Politics are getting more spiritual. When the government moved past things like building roads, issuing driver's licenses, and teaching math, to things like redefining marriage, erasing gender, reframing abortion as reproductive rights, and then using the government school system to indoctrinate everybody's kids into believing those things. Hey guys, the church didn't move. Politics did.
If Josh was alive in the 1950s, he'd be saying the same thing about, the church or the government used to just build roads. Now they're making us integrate with other people that we know are inferior to us, right? How dare the government encroach on our religious liberty to keep the races separate, to stand by our moral conviction? I mean, this is the thing. Josh Howerton, he's so ahistorical. He's just plain ignorant, because he's just repeating the same freaking talking points that radicalized white evangelicals to get political in the first place, which was to maintain racial segregation. I would love to mail this man a Bob Jones sermon that I have archived on my computer so he could hear himself, Because guess what? The government has always been in the business on some level of legislating morality, right? The government, the Supreme Court ruled in Brown v. Board of Education that no, it is unlawful and immoral to maintain Jim Crow laws, and that Black Americans have the same constitutional rights that white Americans do. And guess what, Josh Howerton? White evangelicals freaked the fuck out and we're like, no, that goes against God's created order. No, we can't do this. No, the races must stay separate. So, like, miss me, Josh, with your propaganda, because that's what this is. Everything he said, we could spend an hour unpacking line by line. It's just straight up, and I'm sorry I'm cursing a lot, but it's straight up bullshit.
Yeah.
And he's preaching to 30,000 people in a room and probably 500,000 or more online, right? So this guy has a huge platform, and he's espousing the same rhetoric that former segregationists express, just aimed at a different culture war issue.
Right. And he goes on and very clearly says you should vote for the Republican, because everyone knows what he's talking about.
Well, April, sorry, can I say one more thing? I mean, to your point, right? I mean, Josh really cares about not indoctrinating children and, sexual values, which is why you should vote for the guy who brags about grabbing women and who has been found liable for sexually assaulting, a woman, and who calls women disgusting and pigs, who's on his third marriage and graces the cover of Playboy. The man who calls immigrants poison. Obviously, he embodies biblical values. He really is fighting for those sexual ethics to maintain the monogamist, one man, one woman for life. And his character obviously tells the story. So, I mean, Josh, I gotta say, chef's kiss to you for embracing such a biblical a value system where you would encourage Christians to vote for the man who likes to grab women by the you-know-what. Like, honestly, I'm great job, Josh. Like, I'm just fantastic.
Just a couple quick fact checks, too. When he says that the church hasn't redefined marriage, but politics has. We're talking about the book that endorses polygamy. And literally the Apostle Paul and Jesus were single. And Paul said it is better to be single. Anyway, but especially I want to talk about abortion. To say that the church has not moved on abortion is just factually incorrect. The former president of the Southern Baptist Convention, W.A. Criswell, back when Roe v. Wade was first legalized in the 1970s, he said, and I quote, "I have always felt that it was only after a child was born and had a life separate from its mother that it became an individual person, and it has always, therefore, seemed to me that what is best for the mother and for the future should be allowed." At evangelicals, when Roe v. Wade was first legalized and abortion became federally legal, were indifferent. They either supported it or they were relatively indifferent. Jerry Falwell did not make his first sermon against abortion until 5 years after Roe v. Wade was passed.
Yep.
So the church changed their position on abortion when they realized going against racial integration was a losing battle.
Yeah. There's some American history for you, Ryan Walters, who we're coming up to pretty soon. Just keep that in mind. But yes, you're absolutely right. And again, I mean, and this is why when we say propaganda, we're not being hyperbolic. Like, this is literally classic evangelical revisionist history. It is unbelievable. One last thing I'll say about this: Christianity Today in the late 1970s got 25 major theologians together to answer this question about abortion. And what they said essentially was, we cannot come to any single conclusion. We can't find any biblical support to go one way or another. We just know that if it's if the life of the mother or like her well-being is in jeopardy, that she should have the right to abortion. Like they said, we're all agreed on that. So yes, they absolutely have moved, and they've moved even since I was in the pro-life movement, right? But when I was a pro-lifer, the mantra was, hey, we want to overturn Roe v. Wade. And now it is, hey, can we punish women who get abortions? Is it possible to put any of them to death because they're murderers? I mean, this is the abolitionist, well, they call themselves the abolitionist movement. This is what they're advocating for. Stricter and stricter, no abortion anywhere for any reason, no matter what. They've actually shifted. And again, every accusation is a confession, because Josh Howerton has shifted greatly in the past 4 to 6 years. I digress.
Yeah.
So,
you want to share the Danny Gokey?
We have to. We absolutely have to. Because the reason why we're going to share this is because it's so important to see through the smoke and mirrors, and how this language that they use is actually very loaded. So Danny Gokey, he's a worship pastor, right?
He is a Christian artist. He used to be a music director at a church. He was on American Idol back in the day.
Okay. So here's what he posted this week on his Instagram.
Election season's right around the corner, and Christians, it's not time for us to shrink back and to hide. It's time for us to stand up and vote for Christian principles. Now, some of you might be saying, wait, I don't even see God in this election. Oh, he's doing more than you can think or imagine. And as the church begins to pray, as they begin to vote Christian principles, as they get on their knees and begin to ask the Father to intervene, we're going to see God do some great things. But don't shrink back. It's time to be brave and use our voices.
Okay, so he has this song that comes up. I don't want to get demonetized for playing it, so you can go look it up if you want. So this is very classic evangelical speak for, hey, vote Republican. Okay, Christian values, biblical principles, and also notice how Danny, he actually brings it to only the spiritual at first. We have to pray and ask God to intervene, but also don't shrink back and use your voice, right? So it's really a both and, even though it's masked in more spiritual language. So Danny, thankfully, Danny clarified exactly what he meant in a comment. He actually decoded this message for us, so you can hear what he meant by this statement. April, I would love for you to read this entire thing in your classic April voice, if you'd be so kind.
He pinned this comment so everyone could see it.
Yes,
he says, "Things I'm noticing in this election: one candidate will open wide the door to evil in our land. The other candidate will hold it back. Here's how. One will open the door wide to the mass killing of babies in the womb. The other will limit it greatly. One will open the door to hyper-sexualization of children. One will protect children and limit the current ideology. One believes in only two genders. The other believes in God's design of male and female." That feels like a typo because that's like the same thing. Anyway, one believes the Constitution needs to be rewritten concerning First and Second Amendment. One upholds the Constitution.
It's comical.
So much more, but these are practical steps. Here's what I'm not saying. The candidate I'm voting for is a Christian hero, is my pastor, is my Valentine, is perfect, is my sweetheart. I'm simply saying Christian principles is the most important thing we can vote for this election. And with the two candidates on the ballot box, one will open the door to evil and one will hold it back.
What is he talking about? I would love, where in the Bible is the Christian principle of the First Amendment of unlimited free speech? James tells us that the tongue is one of the most powerful parts of the body. It's like a spark that can set a whole forest on fire, and that we shouldn't have salt water and fresh water flowing from the same mouth. The biblical principle, if we're going to use that phrase, is actually censorship, Danny. It's actually withholding unlimited free speech. I would just love to know. Again, same thing with abortion. The Bible doesn't talk about abortion at all, unless you read Exodus 22, maybe, which again, you have to do a lot of interpretation, which makes it very clear the difference between a fetus and if a baby is born, and what happens if a woman gets hit who's pregnant versus what's the delineation? If a mother gets hit and the fetus dies inside the womb, right? It's like a penalty. But if the mother gets hit and the mother dies, then it's the death penalty for the person who hits her. Right.
So that is that's how historically rabbis have interpreted in the Hebrew Bible. And in Judaism, these evangelicals regularly like to tout Judeo-Christian values.
Yeah, right.
Well, the Jewish part of that, they believe in a religious right to an abortion. If the mother's life is in danger, it is their religious duty to save the woman's life.
Well, what's so funny? This goes back to that the legitimizing narrative. I forgot what I said. Motivated literalism. Notice how I think it's Genesis 2, where God breathes into man the breath of life. I've heard several Jewish people tell me that's one way to interpret it, is that you become fully, human when you take your first breath, right? Therefore, abortion is okay. It's not slaughtering a child, as they phrase it. It's funny that Danny will actually cite the creation account when it comes to gender and sexuality, but then we'll ignore that part when it comes to abortion. So again, you can see the motivated literalism, right? This part is applicable, but in the same chapter, in the same section, this other part doesn't apply to this other talking point that we believe is, is bad or whatever it is. And so this is just a great example of how when you actually unpack this statement, it doesn't line up with what he says this is. These aren't Christian principles at all. These are right-wing talking points. Christian principles in the Bible, you want broad themes in the Bible? Welcome the foreigner. Don't let people be exploited by those in power. Heal the sick, right? Fair wages for the worker. Liberate the oppressed. People who are rich probably will not inherit the kingdom of God unless they repent. If you're rich and you got it off of exploiting people, pay back that money 4 times, like in the story of Zacchaeus. Those are your Christian principles. But they don't actually make it into this little comment from Danny. Instead, it's right-wing talking points masquerading as Christian values. It's unbelievable.
Also, this hyper-sexualization of children.
Oh my gosh. Say it.
Like, they have no understanding of gender and sexuality.
Zero.
Like, they are making this statement from complete ignorance. They think just admitting that queer people exist, whether it's gay people or trans people, that somehow that sexualizes children. No. What actually sexualizes children is telling an 8-year-old girl she has to cover her shoulders or a man might lust after her. That sexualizes children. Not admitting that queer people exist, which is just a fact.
Just a fact. Just a fact. If you don't want your child sexualized, keep them out of your church. Seriously. We cover so many stories every day, April, of pastors and leaders who are abusing children, who are assaulting children, who are putting cameras in the youth group room or in the bathroom. Like, I can give story after story. If you want to protect your kids, do not trust them with any spiritual leader in the church alone. Like, seriously. And I hate to sound that, like, disparaging, but it blows me away that Danny really thinks that, like, mega church pastors in, like, the church world he comes from, like Robert Morris, for example, former pastor of Gateway Church, who molested a 12-year-old when he was in his 20s and covered it up.
Yeah.
Somehow those are the people that your children are safe with. But my God, the public school teacher just informing your child that some people have different sexual orientations than others, that is sexualizing your children. Are you kidding me, Danny? What worldview are you operating with where you go to bed at night and think, yeah, this is congruent, this makes sense, this is biblical, this is what God would want? Like, what is the framework here, bro? Like, what? Honestly, come on the podcast. I will talk to you in good faith. I have so many questions for you. So many questions.
Right. Literally, like, it took me years of therapy and just, like, unlearning what purity culture in the church had taught me about myself as a woman to unlearn the fact that I viewed myself as an object, as a sexual object. Like, I got so uncomfortable just being around men because I was always thinking, is this man sexualizing me? This man's probably sexualizing me. I'm just a sex object. Like, it does so much damage to your psyche as children. It also teaches men to sexualize women too. Like, it's like, I never once felt sexualized when I learned gay people exist.
100%. Because again, propaganda, not the reality, right? This is just, it's noise that serves the greater purpose of getting Trump elected to really instill a Christian nationalist framework throughout our society. And we're going to prove that to you. We're going to prove that to you now, pretty much. I mean, do you want to move into Trump and all that shit?
Yeah, let's go to Trump.
Okay.
Woo!
I mean, geez,
we're trucking along.
We really are. I mean, friends, it was a very busy week, a lot to cover. So thanks for hanging in. If you're watching on YouTube, please give this video a like. And the reason why we tell you that is because more likes tells YouTube, oh, people want to see this more. We'll put it into the algorithm. So please help us out. That'd be super helpful. And of course, we'll love your thoughts as you're kind of going along here. Put it in the comments. Yeah, okay, where do you want to start? You want to start with, like, the Project 2025 line from Trump?
Sure, let's go. Like, we can do that quick. Just another connection to Trump and Project 2025.
Check this out.
Do you already have like
Oh, sorry, I should tee this up for people who can't see it. This is Trump, I think, on a radio show, being interviewed by someone. Listen to what he says here, and then we'll break it down.
Do you already have like plans, proposals ready to go if you get elected? You start the deportation process. You start sealing off the border and doing executive orders, whatever it takes, whatever's within your power.
Done.
It's already done, ready to go.
You've seen Tom Homan. He's coming on board. They're all coming. The whole group is coming on board. Brandon Judd. These are all guys. We had the border in the best.
Okay, I cut off there. So, who is that? Right? I mean,
Tom Homan, who he just said
Homan, yes,
is
this
coming
is why it
on
matters.
board day one into his administration, is the author of Project 2025.
Yeah, he is. Yep. I'm trying to find the clip I had here, or the little I don't think I.
He was a author. There are multiple, but he is one of the main people behind Project 2025.
Yeah. I mean, on immigration, like that's what he's writing about. Let's see if I can pull. There was a headline I wanted to pull up. I got rid of it somehow. What's his name? Oh yeah, there it is. So don't forget, friends, that Trump claims not to know who's behind Project 2025, right? He doesn't know who these people are. He's never heard of it, etc. But he's also all about bringing people from Project 2025 into his administration. I'm trying to find this headline. I don't want to butcher it. Let's see. Oh, here we go. This is it, I think. Pull this up here. Yeah, this is it. So let me pull up the screen. So he said, this is according to thedailybeast.com. I'll read it here. It says, during a conversation with the Conservative Political Action Conference last year, Haman reportedly said that he was, quote, sick and tired of hearing about family separation. I'm sick of being sued over that, he added. I don't give a shit, right? Bottom line is we enforce the law. Trump's camp told Newsweek that he has not endorsed Project 2025. So again, these are the people that Trump is surrounding himself with. This is why when Trump says, well, I think abortion should maybe go back to the states, or I don't support a blanket national abortion ban, you don't believe him, because the people he's surrounding himself with actually believe this stuff. They are far-right Christian nationalist operatives. That's not hyperbolic. That's not being extreme. This is the data behind it. Tom Homan was one of the authors of Project 2025, and Trump is singing his praises on national radio, saying, of course he'll be in the administration day one. Of course, like, Tom's great. We got Tom lined up. He's fantastic. So there you go.
Yep. So don't believe Trump.
Yeah.
Okay, speaking of Trump.
Let's do it.
Or Christian nationalism.
Yeah.
We've been following the story coming out of Oklahoma. I think it was earlier this year, Ryan Walters, who's superintendent in Oklahoma, made this legislation that was going to require the Bible be taught in public schools, and that classrooms are required to have Bibles in them. And so last week, it came to light they started taking bids from retailers for these Bibles. They want to buy 55,000 King James Bibles. Who is gay, by the way? That's my favorite little tidbit, or at least bi.
Side note.
Yeah, that's like my favorite fact to bring up at Thanksgiving. Like, he's gay. Anyway, you can look it up. He literally had love letters with the dude. But anyway, that's off topic. So it had to be King James Bible. They had to be like leather bound, and they had to include the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Pledge of Allegiance, and
Declaration of Independence.
The Declaration of Independence, yes. And interestingly, out of all the almost 3,000 Bibles that Mardel Christian bookstores carried, zero of them fit that criteria.
Wow.
But do you know whose Bible did fit that criteria?
Okay, hold on, wait, let me think. So it makes sense why he couldn't find a Bible like that, because most people don't like combining sacred religious texts with nationalism, because that's idolatry. So that part makes sense. So who out there would potentially endorse or make a Bible that would include all of those things, and maybe is trying to grift evangelicals to secure power and control? Is it Donald Trump?
Ding, 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 ding. Yes.
Wow. Is it the God Bless the USA Bible?
Yeah, that's one of them. Apparently, Trump's endorsed 2 Bibles, though.
He has endorsed 2.
And both of them qualify.
Yeah, of course it does.
Oddly
of course
enough.
it does.
And Trump, I know at least on the God Bless the USA, does get royalties from
Can you think of a more perfect physical example of how Christian nationalism operates, right? Their Bibles literally are a culmination of America revisionist history because of how they view the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, along with the Bible itself. They merge the two to create like their own religion in a way. And it's just so telling that Ryan Walters wants that Bible, not the Bible. They want the American Christian Nationalist Bible taught in not private schools, in all public schools. So if you're a student who's agnostic, if you're Muslim, if you're Hindu, if you're a Buddhist, it doesn't matter. You now have to be taught this if you're in the grades 5 through 12th, 12th grade. I also want to really quick just kind of remind people, Ryan Walters is someone who came on the scene a couple of years ago. He got elected as school superintendent of all Oklahoma schools. He's called teachers unions a terrorist organization. He's pushed for public prayer in schools. The founder of Libs of TikTok, one of the most vitriolic accounts on Twitter that routinely doxes trans and queer people who are not public figures, by the way, and sends bomb threats to schools because of their following. Ryan took the founder of that and put her on their library committee in Oklahoma. That's who Ryan Walters is surrounding himself with, okay? Ryan Walters is a blatant Christian nationalist. He believes that we have to get back to the founding ideals of America, which includes the Bible. I actually have a clip I'm going to play to kind of so you can summarize from Ryan exactly what he believes on this issue. And by the way, if you follow us at all, and you're aware of things like Project 2025 and what that wants to do to public education, keep that in mind as I play this clip. Check this out. It's about a minute and a half. Here we go. This is Ryan Walters speaking.
Let me speak about this before. I commend President Trump for speaking very clearly on, hey, when I win this election, that federal Department of Education is gone. No more. That has to happen. That agency has to be eliminated. And what we're doing right here in Oklahoma, we are laying out the path forward for every state. Every state should be doing this. Every state should be putting the Bible back in its historical context so our kids can understand America. I love reading about Winston Churchill. And Churchill has a quote where he says, look, the further back you can see, the further ahead you can see as well. And if you don't understand our history, you don't understand what made this country great, you don't understand how we got to this point, we're never going to be that great country that lives up to those incredible principles that the founders laid out. So I will tell you folks, the fact that the left has hyper-focused on Oklahoma should tell you we're doing the right thing.
No.
We are taking the fight to them.
Oh my God.
We are going to take our schools back from radical leftists that want them to be atheist centers, and we're going to put the Bible back in its historical context, and every state in the country should be looking at Oklahoma right now and following in our lead. I will not stop fighting for you. I cannot thank you all enough for the support of Oak Pack and the work being done here. But it is because of you continuing to fight on principle, that the state of Oklahoma is absolutely ready for all of these far left attacks. We are ready for the attacks from the teachers unions. So I cannot thank you enough for all the work you're doing.
There you go. There you go.
I cannot.
That's the superintendent of all public schools in Oklahoma.
I cannot believe that he just said we need to teach the historical Bible in historical context so that kids can learn American history.
Yeah, what is he talking about?
America is not in the Bible at all.
Yeah,
we're not there.
I don't know. The Bible isn't in our Constitution. There's no talk about us being a religiously founded nation, especially a Christian one. In fact, it says that we the people, our power comes from we the people, not from any divine being, let alone the Christian God, let alone the Christian nationalist God, right? So again, just pure propaganda. Notice too how he says the left is attacking us. Many moderates are also against what Ryan Walters is doing. And so for Ryan, he has to categorize any attack as being from the left, without realizing that what he's actually doing is he's actually demonstrating how extreme he is, right? In Christian nationalism, this is what they want to do. There's a lot of takeaways here. I mean, a lot.
Yeah.
Because
the persecution complex too, where he says, because we're getting all these attacks, that's proof we're doing the right thing. Like, no,
100%.
It's not, because it's not freedom of religion. It's freedom of Christianity to the detriment of all other belief systems.
Right. And by the way, I mean, this is an administration that went after after Tulsa's public schools and said, hey, we have to we're going to delay the reviewing of your accreditation. And part of that was because to Ryan, what Ryan said was that they were instituting DEI initiatives, and he didn't like that. So I just want to be really clear. If you look into Ryan Walters at all, you're going to see all the things that we warned you about manifested in a person who has power, trying to institute that into a public society where we do have a First Amendment that makes it very clear that the government cannot force people to assimilate into a religious ideal or make them go against the religious conscience as far as like what they're exposed to, especially when it comes to public institutions, right? But for Ryan, being a Christian nationalist, he believes he has a God-given mandate, right, to help people or to take over public institutions to make them Christian nationalists and to have people assimilate into this, what he calls is a Judeo-Christian worldview, which, by the way, even that term Judeo-Christian is a recent term, past 70 years or so it's come around, and it's also an oxymoron because Judaism and Christianity have major irreconcilable differences between them, right? So again, this comes from somewhere, but it really comes from a revisionist view of American history. Even Ryan's idea of like we have to teach true history about what made this country great. What? Colonization, mass slavery, genocide? Like, why won't you teach that, Ryan? That's part of our history. We have to be able to learn from that. So it's just very fascinating to watch in real time what could happen federally if Christian nationalism gets their way.
Because American exceptionalism is part of Christian nationalism.
Totally.
That is why they are actually fighting true history. They call true history indoctrination, and they want to preach this whitewashed version of history. Because if you admit that what we did to indigenous people was a genocide, then you have to question, well, maybe is God still good? Because God blessed us and helped us get these colonies. So your view of America is tied with your view of God when you are a Christian nationalist, which is why it becomes imperative to believe in American exceptionalism, and
100%.
that's like part of this fight. Like, the audacity to be like public schools are indoctrinating our children with facts when you are actually the one indoctrinating your children with an actual revisionist history.
Every accusation is a confession, right? And by the way, this doesn't mean that public schools don't need improvement. Doesn't mean that we can't find bad teachers doing bad things. Of course, like we don't think that they're perfect. We're all about accountability. But let's be clear about something, okay? First off, the 55,000 Bibles that Ryan wants to buy, which, by the way, as of this recording, they did change their parameters to include more different types of Bibles. So they did change. That would cost $3 million. And people are wondering, where are you finding $3 million from the school budget, which, by the way, is taxpayer-funded money, right, to buy religious texts based on someone's religious zealotry that we are a Christian nation and children have to be taught that literal indoctrination, because we're not any of those things. Also, Oklahoma public schools rank 45th in the country. So isn't it telling?
According to Wallet Hub 2023 states with the best and worst school systems, Oklahoma ranked 50th in school quality.
I saw that one. I just didn't know how reputable it was. So I figured, either way, 45, 50th, it's in the bottom. I mean, it's in the bottom of the barrel, right? And what is Ryan running on? Remember, guys, keep in mind, he's the school superintendent over the whole state. Right? He's the person who you would think is the most passionate about public education and making sure that all children, including especially the most marginalized ones, have access to quality education and to school lunches, because when you usually go into education, you care about kids. His argument is the way we fix that is by, first off, defunding the Department of Education federally, how we get rid of that, and props to Trump for getting that done. And number two, or for campaigning to get that done. And number two, we need to post the 10 Commandments in all public schools, which he did, and we need to buy kids Bibles so we can teach them about America's true history. That's how we're going to solve our education crisis in Oklahoma. Nothing about, and also teachers unions are terrorist organizations. You know, the teachers that actually teach our kids, they're actually the enemy. Do you see how this works? It's not about education. It's not about caring for kids. It's all just a ruse to get in like a Trojan horse to gut these public systems. Absolutely. Ryan is swimming deep in the theonomy, dominionism theology of a guy named R.J. Rushdoony. This is back in the 70s and 80s. You can read him, very prolific writer that many people like him and Doug Wilson are standing on. R.J. Rushdoony does not believe in public education. He believes in dismantling government-funded public education and moving to some kind of private education model where, newsflash, white Christian men are in charge of the curriculum, not just for other Christian children whose parents are consensually sending their kids there, but for every child in America.
My heart really goes out to the teachers too. They're already underpaid, overworked.
Totally.
You know, so many of them have to buy their own supplies for their classrooms.
Crazy.
Like the education system needs more money and more help for these students to better their education. This is putting Bibles in schools is just a waste of taxpayer money. Like it's not going. The teachers need actual help. These schools need actual funding to do the things that the teachers have been asking for years and years, and to ignore those real needs and be like, no, what you just need is the 10 Commandments and the Bibles. And did you say, like, they did tweak the, I know you said that they tweaked the parameters. The qualification was that all those things didn't have to be in one book. So now they can just also supply the Constitution, whatever. But that was only after backlash. But initially I was like, man, can you just imagine being a 5th grader in class, the 10 Commandments being on the wall where it says clearly, thou shalt not commit adultery, while reading a Trump Bible endorsed by a serial adulterer.
Yeah.
I mean,
Christian values, baby.
Yeah.
Christian values. I want to share something else. I'm kind of doing it on the fly here. Hopefully this works. I'm going to airdrop this to myself. So I want to bring up something. He mentioned OACPAC, and that's where he was speaking at. This is a new organization that is in Oklahoma. This is their front page. It features a picture of Charlie Kirk fist bumping someone named Wade Burleson. And it says, OACPAC Foundation welcomes Turning Point USA. And at the bottom, it says, at the very top, it says, restoring the foundations of Western civilization. Now, to be clear, that is usually a dog whistle in most cases. Okay, when you hear that, something is amiss. This is
patriarchy.
This is a very small nonprofit. I think it's a nonprofit. I think it's a pop-up, and their mission statement just has this. There's actually no mission statement here. I'm trying to load this. Let's see. There we go. It's just this picture, and I don't know who this is, so I'm going to mispronounce his name. It's Alexander. Do you want to try and say that last name? Is that better?
Solzhenitsyn?
Yeah. And
Solzhenitsyn?
it's just a quote that says, "The fall of the West, a voluntary decline into a contrived and pretentious quest where the artist, instead of attempting to reveal the divine plan, tries to put himself in the place of God." I just want to say, once again, every accusation a confession, because these are the same men who are actually trying to be God by enforcing some kind of arbitrary moral law that they get from random parts of the Bible over everyone else, right? So there's this idea that Christian nationalists will say, oh, our society is trying to be God, when in reality, these men are acting like they are God. Like they're the ones in charge. They have access to God, and we just all have to bow down and kiss the ring and submit to them. So it's just a very important piece. So Ryan, that clip that I played, Ryan was speaking at this like conference thing. And I want to play this other clip. I don't know who this guy's name. Actually, I do. Hold on. I have it here. I don't have it. We're just going to play it. But this was at the same event that Ryan Walters was at. Listen to what he says here, about a 50-second clip.
Thank you for allowing me to call an audible and come up here. But my good friend, Ryan Walters, I tell you what, this guy is a hero in every way. When he came and we were talking about the Bible in school, I went back to Article 2, Section 5 of the Oklahoma State Constitution. It clearly states that no money can be spent indirectly or directly or on any sect, S-E-C-T, section of a community, meaning the LGBTQ or any other section of a community. I recently got an LGBTQ page removed from our yearbook in one of our schools, and thanks to Ron Walters' effort as well.
So just to kind of paraphrase, what he's saying, I believe, is that in like the school constitution or the state constitution with how money should be spent for school stuff, they can't, I guess, favor any one sect. And so he used that as a way to get a page removed out of the yearbook that I guess included like LGBTQ plus representation, right? Remember, these are the same people who want to use school funds to buy Bibles to tell children about the true founding of the American project, right? Keep that in mind.
And what Michael Morrison didn't mention earlier, when we move school board elections, that saves the schools $29 million every 2 years to spend on Bibles. Ladies and gentlemen, my friend Ryan Walters.
So this is the event. Like, Ryan is tied into this foundation, and that man that you just heard is the founder of this organization, saying the quiet part out loud, right? He's saying, hey, if we can save $29 million a year or every 2 years, we can spend that money on more Bibles. That's taxpayer-funded money being spent on a religious text to indoctrinate children into a Christian nationalist worldview. It's such an egregious violation of the separation of church and state, which, by the way, does exist, despite what these folks tell you. And it's just so blatant. And then don't forget, put it together, friends. Ryan said in that first video, actually, you know what? I'll just play it again, just so you can really hear. Keep all this in mind. Now, here's what Ryan says here. Listen to this again, one more time.
Let me speak about this before. I commend President Trump for speaking very clearly on, hey, when I win this election, that federal Department of Education is gone. No more.
Yeah.
That has to happen.
Wait for it.
Agency has to be eliminated. And what we're doing right here in Oklahoma, we are laying out the path forward for every state.
We are laying out the path forward for every state. Did you hear that, friends? Again, when we tell you Christian nationalism wants to take over, they want to indoctrinate children into a revisionist history of American mythology, and they want to make America just like them. They want to order America into these social and sexual and racial hierarchies that they've determined are what God wants, and they will do whatever they can on a legal level to make that happen. You just heard Ryan Walters, the state superintendent of Oklahoma, say that they are laying the groundwork for what every state should do at some point in the upcoming future. And this stuff is represented behind a Trump administration, right? I mean, Ryan just praised Trump. Trump has said that Tom Oman, the guy from Project 2025, is going to be in his administration. Trump has said publicly we have to get rid of the Department of Education. They are just, I mean, they're just saying the quiet part out loud. Like, they're not, there's no more dog whistles. They're just saying it. They're saying we have to defund these programs. We have to get kids to read the Bible again. We got to bring public prayer back into public schools. And oh, by the way, we care about religious liberty. That's code. They care about white Christian religious privilege. They do not give a shit about the rights of their Muslim neighbor, their Hindu neighbor, their atheist neighbor, their agnostic neighbor, all of their other neighbors who do not fit into a white heteronormative Christian identity are going to be ruled over by these people if they get the power that they want. I'm sorry, we got to just say it, April. We got to just say the quiet part out loud. I've been doing this work too damn long. I've seen too many videos. I've met too many people. I've gone to too many Christian nationalist events for people to be like, you guys are kind of extreme. No, we're just pointing out what is extreme right now. We're pointing out to you the extremism baking in white Christian evangelical spaces, from Josh Howerton repeating the same bullshit talking points to Danny Gokey to Ryan Walters. These guys are swimming in the same pool. They're all connected by one or two different, degrees of separation. They're all saying the same thing. They all want to see a Christian nation. This is what the future is if these folks get power. We should be terrified. And damn it, you better vote this election. My God, you better freaking vote, because the way that we fight this stuff is not through violence or dehumanization or trying to grab our own power back and trying to rule over them. We do it at the ballot box. We vote for politicians and candidates that want to respect, dare I say, the rule of law. Like, whoever wins the election wins the election. Maybe we shouldn't try and overthrow the government because we didn't win, right? These are people who want to respect pluralism. They want to continue to unravel democratic ideals so more people are included in the democratic process in America, because God knows we have so much more work to do there. These people like Ryan Walters want to bring us back to a time where white, straight men voted only. And again, I'm not exaggerating. Look up what Doug Wilson is saying. Look up what they said at Turning Point USA's America Fest. Watch our recap. They said from the stage that there was a time where women couldn't vote, and maybe we should go back to that because women's suffrage was a mistake. Wake up, please. I beg you, please. Sorry, I got a rant.
It's Christian, and the thing is that is sad to me is that this is what I wanted. When I was in this movement, I wanted all of this stuff. Like, I was a Christian nationalist, but I didn't know that I was because I thought I was just being a good Christian. And that is what is so insidious about Christian nationalism is it hides in plain sight. Yeah. And there are so many well-meaning people that have got sucked up into these culture wars that don't realize their faith has been hijacked by nationalism because they're in this echo chamber. They read the Bible, but it's very cherry-picked. And because if you actually read the teachings of Jesus' life was antithesis of nationalism. He did not tell his disciples to storm Rome's capital when he was arrested, when he went willingly. He told people to lay down their weapons. Like, we've talked about this so many times. If you actually read the life of Christ, it is the opposite of what Christian nationalists are leaning towards. And we call them Christian nationalists, but these are conservative white evangelicals. And there is some difference. Not every white evangelical is a Christian nationalist, but most of them to this day espouse nationalism to some degree. And I don't think most of them realize it. And that is why it is so dangerous, because they believe they're doing the right thing. I mean, that's why I wrote this book, because it's the mindset. It's such a backwards way of thinking, but they really believe that they're on this holy war and this holy quest. And it is something that they have wanted, that I used to want. I'm sure you used to want too, that we were taught from the young age. America was a Christian nation. America is falling in decadence and morality, and we need to get back to being a Christian nation in order to save it. And literally, Christian nationalism is rooted in so many theological, it's just taken over from even abortion to end times beliefs. It is rooted in so much of it. And I realized kind of when I had this epiphany that I was a Christian nationalist, that I got so consumed with putting Christ back in Christmas, or putting Christ back in schools, or putting Christ back in our country, that I totally missed that I needed to put Christ back in Christian. Anyway, it's a real...
Bravo. I don't know. Anyway. Listen, I'm just kind of, I'm over trying to sugarcoat this shit. I just am. Sometimes you have to get a little unfiltered and just be honest with people and kind of wake them up and use some strong language and just say what needs to be said. Yeah. And this needs to be said. And, at this point, April, I think in the beginning, at least for me, I kind of doubted, do I know what I'm talking about? Have I researched this enough? I'm 3 years in. I've interviewed and now I know personally almost every major scholar on Christian nationalism who's shaping this stuff. I've read the literature. I go to these events. I hear the conversations. Yes, I know what the hell I'm talking about. And if you don't believe me, it's a you problem at this point. I cannot give you enough evidence, clips, data, talking points, scholarship, receipts, history. I can't give you enough to convince you. That's on you. It just is. So
Christian nationalism is on the ballot this year.
It is. It absolutely is. It absolutely is. It is undoubtedly, objectively on the ballot this year. Which way, young man? Seriously. And anyway, that's for a different episode. But yeah, please just make sure you vote. Please make sure you vote in your local elections. Make sure you vote in federal elections. You need to vote. You need to get up off your ass. You need to register to vote if you haven't. Check to make sure you're still registered to vote, because sometimes they clean out whatever, like the databases.
And some places the deadline's already passed too.
Okay. So please,
check immediately.
We put a link in every show note now for how to check all of that and how to register to vote. Please freaking vote.
And I know at least in Kentucky, I'm sure there's other states too, there is a amendment on the ballot about school choice where they're wanting to take fund. Like in Kentucky, I want to vote no on 2, but basically they're wanting to give school choice, which would take federal funds out of the public school system, which they need more money, not less, and will put it into private Christian institutions.
By the way, that's just to point this out. This is how the circle works, okay? Christian nationalists, they want to defund public education. They do that. Public education starts to crumble because it's not funded. And then they point out how public education is not working and how we need something new, right? They actually create the problem and then they offer a different antidote. Same thing, even with like the whole FEMA stuff. I'm sure you heard about, this rumor that FEMA was spent all their money on immigration. Not true, by the way, by a long shot. But you hear a lot of these Christian nationalist talking point, or right-wing media talking heads say, oh my God, the government's been so bad at this response. Oh my God, I can't believe FEMA has been so slow to respond, which isn't completely true. But also, their constituents, their politicians are the ones always voting to defund things like FEMA. And they're the ones running on making the federal government smaller. So they do that. The federal government gets smaller and can't give the right response at the right time. And then they say, oh, look, the government isn't doing enough now, right? The government isn't responding fast enough. Yeah, because you're voting to defund it every damn second. Like, stop creating the problem then. Like, let's work together to build a more robust system that has checks and balances and that has better integrity and that is funded. So when this stuff happens, because God knows you're not going to stop the fossil fuel industry, most of those people are bought off by them, even some Democrats, right? Yeah. So if this is going to keep happening, the least we can do is equip our government to respond to this stuff as quick as possible.
Yep. Should we do tweets of the week?
This has been a great therapy session. I gotta say, I feel, April, you're such a great therapist. Thank you for listening to
me. You're welcome.
Yeah, tweets of the week. Let's get into it, and then we'll wrap this up. Number 1. There you go.
Okay, this is technically a Facebook post, but
close enough.
This was in a Facebook rapture warning group. Sorry if you're listening. It's a picture that you can't see, but the caption says, "Look at this storm." It's a picture of the Hurricane Milton. What do you call that? The satellite.
It's like a satellite image. Yeah.
Of it. Yeah. Okay. Look at this storm. There is a blatant face as a demon. There's no denying it. That's crazy. And pray for God's hand to protect those in its path. I can't tell you how much time I spent trying to find the face. Can you zoom in on it?
I'm trying. Hold on. I'm turning my head upside down. No, that's not it. Okay, yeah. Let's see if I can zoom in. Okay. Wow. Look at that. We're all in here, April. Do you see anything?
Okay.
Where?
Okay.
Where?
So you see the eye, right?
Here, right? Yeah.
So
okay, I see it.
Look slightly to the left. There's like
there
might be like a nose and a mouth there.
Oh, I'm like it's maybe? a little diagonal.
Yeah, like
maybe
it kind of honestly it looks more like maybe a goat.
Yeah. Maybe but it's Jesus. Do I see Jesus in this?
Still a stretch though.
Oh my, it's horrible. Okay, yeah, I that is the worst Rorschach test of all time. Like if you don't do that. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2.
This is another thing about Hurricane Milton. If Floridians would know a Hungarian wisdom that storms can be broken up by church bells, energy vibration, they would turn on all church bells in the path of Milton and would ring them nonstop until the eye of the hurricane is broken up. We are not helpless. We just need to use the knowledge that we have. Please call your local pastor and ask him to turn on the bells in affected areas. I am not making this up. Please see video in the comment section. I don't know where that is. # turn on the bells.
How many likes did this tweet get?
I saw this everywhere. This was all over Facebook. I saw several people share that. It's like people were copy and pasting it.
No, April. I thought you were in like the real fringe of Twitter with like some random person who has like 2 followers.
No,
saying
I had
that
several people also send this to me and say like they had family members sharing this.
If we just ring the church bells, the energy vibration will break up the storm.
Yep. Listen,
can we just move on? I can't talk about that. Oh, Jesus Christ! I'm sorry, it's ridiculous. Let's get even worse and go to Mark Driscoll. I'm not calling him bastard.
Fair. Okay, Mark Driscoll. tweeted, Satan has been trying to globalize nations since the Tower of Babel. God created nationalism to prevent humans from creating a demonic counterfeit of heaven.
What does this mean, Mark? What does this mean? Mark, you're speaking in tongues, and biblically we need an interpretation. Like, what are you saying?
I think he's saying that Christian nationalism is good, actually. They went from being like, there's no such thing as Christian nationalism, to a bunch of them were like, actually, it's good.
I can't. I can't. Okay, let's get this over with. I'm so over this episode already. Well, not already. I'm over it now.
I'm gonna vote for the non-demon face.
Yeah, me too. I mean, let's just call it a day. Non-demon face, you win. You win.
It's more funny. The others were just kind of.
Oh my gosh. Hey, big news. We're not gonna be here next Friday, April.
Oh right.
We're going to be at Theology Beer Camp, you and me in person, with all kinds of amazing people in Denver, Colorado. And we're doing a live, well, we're going to record it live, but it will get posted later on. An episode on the main stage with Brian McLaren and Diana Butler-Bass. So, friends, next week is not really going to have a recap. Just FYI, we're not going to be here. We're going to be away. April, any closing thoughts on this episode? I just feel like I hit a wall all of a sudden. I just can't do it anymore. I just can't do it.
Yeah.
Too much.
We can fight Christian nationalism. I think using the red letters, getting people to act. Hopefully the Bibles in Oklahoma, my final thought, will backfire, because there's actually a lot of people that deconstruct when they actually read the Bible if the teacher is showing it objectively and not with a Christian nationalist agenda. So, maybe there's a silver lining.
Fair enough. Friends, I cannot thank you enough for listening to our rant. I know this is not always fun, but hopefully it's motivation for you to vote, to tell people about the threat of Christian nationalism. Thanks for being here. Have a great rest of your Friday. You got the hard part out of the way. You listened to all the bad news. Now go enjoy the sunshine. Get a cup of blueberry coffee. I don't know. Enjoy it. We will see you here in 2 weeks. Have a good one.
Bye.
I'm gonna cry.